Okay, everybody, we are back with Jazz Harper, Chapter 5, First Expedition. Well, here we are, starting off with some emails. From Jazz Harper. Subject, Riri. Hi, Gran. Dear Gran, thanks for your email. I would like to tell you that being on Mars is simply marvelous. I would like to tell you that, but I can't. You'd expect Mars school to be fun, wouldn't you? The planet is extraordinary after all. Well, here are the ways where it's utterly tedious. We do maths on old-fashioned tablets, like we're in the 2010s. This was interesting for about 5 minutes, and then I worked out why we don't do maths and English like that anymore. Elijah asked if we could calculate how far it was to Olympus Mons and how much fuel we would need for the journey there and back. But Miss K said, "Don't be ridiculous." Number 2. In geography, we don't learn about Mars. We learn about directions. That is it. Plain old boring directions that I learned in year 2 on Earth. Mrs. K said that it was important that we could identify north, east, south and west because compasses wouldn't work on Mars. What is the point in learning about directions if we never actually go anywhere? Elijah asked if we could learn about Olympus Mons because it's the biggest volcano in the solar system and it's right here on Mars. Miss K just said, "Don't be ridiculous." In technology, all we do is learn how to sew so that we can make our own clothes. It would be fun if we actually got to design our own clothes, but instead we just make the same beige t-shirt again and again. Miss K says that if we're good, we might get to make beige trousers too. Woohoo! Not. In PE, we clear the classroom and do aerobics. That is it. We never play football or dodgeball or netball or tennis. Number 5, I thought science would be fun, but all we do is listen to Miss K reading science facts from a book and then we write down what she says. This week, she told us all about single-celled organisms, which are teeny tiny little creatures that can't even think. I asked her if we could learn about Martians instead, but she said, "Don't be ridiculous." Elijah asked if we could do experiments with gravity, but Miss K said, I think you can guess what she said. Number 6, sometimes an emergency alarm goes off, but we never get to help with the emergency because we're not grown up. Even Elijah, he is my very best friend by the way, thinks it's boring. And Elijah is more of a goody-goody than Florence Nightingale. You'd like him, Gran. Worst of all is this horrible girl called Letitia. She's always been sneering and making fun of me and Elijah, even when we're being perfectly normal. We have to put up with her every day at school because there are so few children on Mars that we're in every lesson together. I wish that she would zoom back to Earth and never bother us again. Please send help before I run away with the Martian circus. I miss you. Hugs and kisses, Jazz. Dearest Jazz. Oh, not yet. There we go. Dearest Jazz. So from Ellen Sweeney, I think that's Gran. And subject re. Hi, Gran. Dearest Jazz, you've discovered 2 of the great secrets of exploration. Firstly, you have to put up with people who are very unpleasant. Just remember that their unpleasantness is their problem, not yours. It won't make them any friends in the long run, and it's no good letting their bad attitude spoil your good time. I once made the mistake of trying to get my own back on a particularly unpleasant project leader by feeding her a cocona fruit that was well past its best. After that, I not only had to put up with her unpleasantness, but we also had to make constant stops for her to run into the jungle as she had to go. Secondly, in between the moments of exhilaration and discovery, there is boredom and even drudgery. Imagine canoeing down the Amazon for a month. Yes, we fought alligators, feasted with indigenous tribes, and drank coffee brewed from the beans we picked ourselves, but each day we paddled for hours and hours. Just imagine the same brown water drifting by, the same trees nodding on either bank, and nothing but grey sky above. We had to invent our own fun. Jazz, you're a resourceful girl. You have the whole of Mars at your fingertips, and a new best friend to boot. I can't wait to hear about all your next adventures. All my love, Gran. Okay, let's have a look here. Sol 82, Mars year 57. Greetings, Jazz's diary. This is Elijah, reporting for duty. What follows is a true and faithful account of the events of Yestersol. Jazz proclaims that she is so fed up with life on Mars that she can't stand to write about it anymore. But I think that her diary is an important log that will benefit generations to come. Jazz said that if I was so bothered, I should write in it, so here I am. Firstly, I should explain how Yestersol's incident came about. For many souls, Jazz and I entertained ourselves with the limited resources available. Jazz calls it making our own fun. We learn every card game under the sun, but Jazz hates card games because I always win. Next, we tried to write our own story in the communications room, but Jazz said that it made her sad that she had to write about imaginary adventures instead of having real ones. Now I am finishing the story on my own. If you're the sort of person who enjoys stories about time-traveling wizards on a mission to save the universe from a sentient black hole, you should definitely read it. Oh, wrong page. There we go. We also played old-fashioned games like I Spy, but there's only so long you can keep pretending that life is really just a long car journey. Then we went to the greenhouse. Sometimes we go there to play clapping and skipping with Ellie Mae, or to stare out at the surface of Mars. Jazz looks for aliens and I count rocks. However, if Letitia is there, we turn around and go somewhere else instead. Today, Jazz wanted to go to the greenhouse and pretend to be Mars explorers. We didn't see Letitia at first. We were too busy ducking around the broad bean patch, hiding from the alien police who wanted to capture us. "What do you think you're doing?" asked Letitia, appearing right from where the alien police were supposed to be. We both jumped. Note from Jazz: "No, I didn't." I explained to Letitia that we were playing Mars Explorers, but Jazz kicked me, so I guess I shouldn't have said anything. Letitia rolled her eyes. "You two are so weird. Why don't you do a proper expedition around the colony or something?" "We have," said Jazz. "We're in the greenhouse, aren't we? We've been to the canteen and the communications room and the gym. They're all pretty boring." "Wow," Letitia folded her arms. "You know that there's more to the colony than that, right?" "Of course we know," Jazz was nearly shouting. I calmly explained that I was pretty sure that we were not allowed anywhere else. "Who says?" said Letitia. She sprawled back to her giggling friends. Jazz spun round to me and hissed, "I hate her. Come on, let's go and find somewhere new." My mouth hung open. Then I reminded Jazz that we were not allowed. "Who says?" "Well, no one, but..." "So let's go." Jazz grabbed my arm and we walked out of the greenhouse. The thing is, I really wanted to explore the colony properly with Jazz, but I couldn't get rid of that niggling feeling that Letitia was trying to get us into trouble. First, we went to the deepest, darkest, rockiest places where my dad works, building new homes for future colonists. When we arrived, there was a barrier up, and beyond it, flashing lights and people in hard hats. I couldn't see my dad, so the people working there kindly showed us the drill that they were using, and even got to borrow some ear defenders so that the noise wouldn't deafen us. We were watching them bore a hole into the rock. Chunks of molten rock flew in every direction. When Dad showed up, he said that it wasn't safe and that we shouldn't be bothering the other workers. He didn't want to see us there again. I didn't even have time to snatch a rock fragment as he hurried us away. After that, we tried to go to the oxygen plant, but there was a secret code to get in. It was the same as the water treatment facility. I didn't want to go there anyway. The stench makes me want to vomit, but Jazz says that dealing with disgusting things is part of being an adventurer. Next, we went to the labs. It was all Jazz's idea. She said that we could ask her mum to teach us some real science. I love real science. My dream is to be a space volcanologist and to study volcanoes on different planets. At home on Earth, I have a huge collection of rocks and magma samples, but Dad said that I couldn't bring it all to Mars as there wasn't any room in my luggage. So I've just found my two favourite rocks, a lump of garnet peridotite and a polished pebble of unakite. I was hoping to add some basalt from Olympus Mons to my collection, but it looks like that may never happen. Do you think they've got aliens in there? Asked Jazz as we approached the lab. Maybe they've captured one already, but they're keeping it a secret. Maybe that's why they keep having emergencies but won't let us help. There was a code on the lab door too, so Jazz pressed the buzzer and asked to see her mum. When her mum came to the door, Jazz said, "Elijah and I were just talking about how we wanted to see some real science in action. Can we come in and watch you do some experiments, please? Please." Whoops. Oh, gone too far. "Please, I suppose it can't hurt," her mum replied. "That's my bench over there. I was just fetching a sample from the refrigerator. Don't touch anything until I'm back, okay?" The lab was lit with bright lights. Scientists stood in white coats and goggles beside metal benches. Around the room were mysterious labelled samples that looked like moon dust or swirling fog. There were bubbling test tubes, hissing machines, and flickering gas burners. Best of all, Jazz's mum had a big lump of Martian rock sitting on her lab bench. I began to inspect the rock from every angle. I could tell that it was Martian rock from the fiery orange colour, but there was a white vein running through it. Jazz nudged me as I was inspecting the sample. Her eyes bulged and she tilted her head towards the chattering scientists from the other side of the lab. I stood completely still as we strained to listen. "There are 3 candidate caves," said one scientist, "only 30 or so kilometres away." "That close?" said another one. "Yes, we're planning an expedition next week." Something's going to happen. By now, Jazz's mum had emerged from the metal door. She paused by the chatting scientists to join their conversation. "What's this about an expedition?" "They think that they've located a promising site for alien life," said the first scientist. "I'll be heading out next week." "Won't that be something?" said Jazz's mum. "I'm so jealous. Just think about it. You could be the first ever person to retrieve extraterrestrial life." "Well, we don't know if we'll find anything." Jazz's eyes were wide and her mouth was a teeny tiny O shape. She started to duck and dive around the lab tables, an invisible stun gun held in front of her. Completely lost in finding imaginary aliens, she crept around the stool, ducked into a forward row across the floor, and... I hissed at her to be careful. I was too late. She slammed right into Mum's lab table. The Martian rock teetered and tumbled off the edge. Smash! The rock cracked into fragments that spun around the floor. The scientists surrounded us in seconds. "What was that? Is anyone hurt?" Jazz's mum marched over with her hands on her hips. Her boots crunched in the rock dust. "Both of you, out, now!" We ran from the lab faster than if there was actual Martians chasing us. When we reached the safety of Jazz's bedroom, we were both shaky. I've never seen Jazz's mum that angry before. Jazz should have known that she wasn't being sensible in the lab. Something was bound to go wrong. I don't think we'll ever be allowed back in. I don't know what I will do about my career as a volcanologist if I can't ever go inside the labs. Jazz says she wants to write now, so I'll let her take over. "Hello. I want it on record that it's not fair. We're on Mars. Mars! A cold red planet orbiting the sun. A planet that humans hadn't set foot on until 25 years ago, and hadn't lived on until 17 years ago. Now we're here, and we're not even allowed outside. Not even allowed to see the dust storms. We're not even allowed to help the researchers, and we're not even allowed to see the tunnels going back into the rock. Mum's always going on about being curious, and Gran's always going on about being brave. But when I try to be curious and brave, what happens? We get yelled at. Why bring us here in the first place? Sincerely yours and very disgruntled, Jazz Harper. P.S. Elijah didn't tell you that his rocks have names. They're called Penny Peridot and Kenny Unakite. Okay. And that's the end of the chapter. It looks like Jazz isn't having the best time at the moment on the Marineris colony. She was allowed into the lab for a little bit, but was being silly, and one of the rocks that they've recovered from Mars they brought in has smashed. I wonder what's going to happen next in chapter 6.